In this video, we're going to look at chemical bonding, the two types of bonding we've studied so far, and just recap and have an overview of ionic and covalent bonding. So we've said that noble gases have full outer shells of electrons, and because of these full outer shells, they are stable and therefore unreactive. They don't participate in bonding with other atoms. There you see neon with its 8 electrons in its outer shell. The noble gas structure obeys the octet rule. The octet rule is that there are 8 electrons in a full outer shell, second shell and third shell. Bonding occurs between atoms so that they gain a full outer shell of electrons and become more stable in the process. So if they are not noble gases, then in order to become more stable, chemical reactions take place and bonding occurs between atoms. So if an atom needs to gain a full outer shell of electrons, there are 3 things that can happen. An atom can lose electrons. For example, magnesium, metals lose electrons because they have a few electrons in their outermost shell, so it's easy to lose those electrons to become more stable so that the next shell is their full shell. In this example, you see magnesium losing those 2 outer shell electrons, and in the process, it becomes charged with an overall charge of 2+. It's lost 2 electrons, so it has 2 more protons in its nucleus. The second thing that can happen to atoms to gain full outer shells is to gain electrons. And there's an example of oxygen. Oxygen has 6 electrons in its outermost shell. It needs 2 more. And so oxygen can gain electrons. And where it gains electrons from would be the metal that is losing electrons. And once oxygen gains those electrons, it has an overall negative charge, double negative charge, 2- charge on the ion. Remember that positively charged ions, such as magnesium in this example, are called cations, and negatively charged ions, such as oxide in this example, are called anions. So cations and anions. The metal ions lose electrons and transfer the electrons to the non-metal ions in ionic bonding. The third way that atoms can gain full outer shells that we've learned so far is by sharing electrons. Here we see fluorine, a non-metal, which has 7 electrons in its outermost shell. Therefore, it is not stable. It needs to gain 1 electron. So there's a fluorine, 7 electrons. If it shares its 1 electron with another fluorine, which also has 7 electrons, because their electron shells share those 2 electrons, if you count the number of electrons in the outermost shell of either of those fluorine atoms, or fluorine atoms that are part of the molecule, they now have 8 electrons. Okay, because they are joined together now, it's no longer fluorine atoms, it's a fluorine molecule, F2. We call it a diatomic molecule, di because it's got 2 atoms joined together by a covalent bond. And this is a single covalent bond, 2 electrons shared. So that is an overview of the 2 types of bonding we've dealt with so far.